Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to Theonopolis. So today we are kind of finishing the bigger windmill and we are building a small farmhands village just because it looks really nice where it is located, but also it adds a little bit of like a human touch or human skill to the ride, because so far every building that has been built for this ride is kinda enormous, at least compared to the ride, because we have two windmills, like the bigger one which we are cluttering up right now, which the ride goes through, so that building is obviously already gigantic. And then we also have like a smaller windmill, which is smaller, but it's still kinda large compared to the ride. And then the station is a giant mansion, so yeah, I think this ride needed a few smaller buildings just to make it not as imposing as it is right now. Like, I look back at the facade that we built in the last video for this windmill and it's kind of intimidating, which I didn't intend it to be. Like, it's very like symmetrical and a little bit like, I don't know, like less is more kind of attitude has gone into that facade, but that also made it that it looks very like official and very, well, as I said, intimidating, which kind of works well because it's probably the biggest windmill in Theonopolis, so you don't want people who don't need to be there in there. You don't want people who don't like work there or are in any other way connected to the building to be in there, because probably Theonopolis' food supply depends on not only this windmill but probably in like a big portion on this windmill, so you don't want just random people be there. It's a little bit intimidating, and that's also a reason why I didn't add doors to the building, because it's already intimidating enough as it is. Giant doors that swing open when you approach will just make the place look haunted. But anyway, well, I'm kind of getting a little bit late on this, but we just built some smaller water mills just because I wanted a little bit more like gear work and like some industrial feel to the windmill, and it kind of fits because some windmills, when you look at how they like work, the amount of gears is somewhat surprising. But also I just wanted to tap a little bit more into like the water part of this ride, just so that it's not like, oh yeah, you're going through windmills and such. Oh yeah, it's a water ride. No, I really want to just also have that water theme be in there, which in a way kind of conflicts with the general idea you have when, let's say, storing grain or processing grain. Because you generally want to keep grain and flour and such as dry as possible, just so that it doesn't, you know, become moldy overnight. And then, well, this is just all water, like it's right next to it. So in a way, it kind of defeats the purpose. But then most of like the grain storage, or at least the storage, well, I thought I wanted to have like storage, like, how do you call them? Well, just storage pots, but the pots that we have in game are kind of small, or at least for storing grain I thought they were just small. So we're going to build some larger pots later on, but yeah. So those pots are generally actually not in the windmill itself. Just because if you store grain in this windmill, first of all, if you store flour in, well, any place with water, I think we've all known what happens when flour comes into contact with water. It just becomes a sticky paste that just is annoying to get rid of. So you don't want that, also because, you know, it gets moldy earlier and you want to store grain as long as possible. Same goes for grain, with like, well, less of the aspect of like it becomes a sticky paste, but more of like you want it to be as dry as possible, just so that it's, I think, also easier to process, but also, well, you don't want it to get moldy. Kind of the same deal. But anyway, so one of these water mills is actually connected to the giant mill in the middle, which if you are missing, well, or if you don't see the, well, giant mill and gearwork in the middle, I'm kind of worried for you. But anyway, most of today's episode is basically, well, the Farmhands village, which is going to be like 1/3 of this episode. But most of it is going to be like building Clutter for the windmill. Because, well, there are not many objects in Planetcoaster itself which would work for like instruments that would be used in a windmill or any kind of like farm area. Well, we have some things, but I generally thought like either they're just small, they don't fit the theme, or I just don't like them. Like there's some areas that, or some objects that would really work well with the theme, or you know, with the area that we're building in, and just, well, would work, but I just generally don't like them. And yeah, that's just a matter of personal opinion. So yeah, especially like you have the scarecrow thing, which would work for like a grain or farmlands area, because those annoying birds that we have in Planetco is yeah, I hate those birds. Like they work really well for any kind of like haunted mansion or something, but anywhere else, those, I think they are ravens, are just damn annoying. Like the sound, and they just don't stop. I think I've used them in Theonopolis for, let's say, a split second, and then I heard them like, well, let's just say those got removed pretty quick. And yeah, as I said before, you don't want to really store grain or any kind of, well, most like supplies or like food related items really close to water. But yeah, let's just throw that out of the window, because this isn't like flour what I wanted to, well, make it look like. I just wanted it to look like unprocessed flour. I don't know, like if you take like grain and, well, get all the seeds out, that's what I wanted this to look like. There's like still some like little bits of plant, but most of those are like, well, I wanted it to be like the seeds. There's probably a better word for that, or actually a word for it, but yeah, I'm really just proving that I'm a little bit of a squirrel, and that the picture for, or like the profile pic for my channel really fits, because I just can't remember words when I need to. Also, yes, I'm going to remove those pots in the middle, just because I don't know, they just don't, like, you can use those pots, and that's, well, I think it's like a confectionery item, or like, I think one of those Christmas items where you could like build candy things. You can use them for like spices and such, but for flour they don't really look right. And now we're building a large pot, because yeah, we don't really have like large pots that would actually work for like a Greek theme. I actually tried to find out like, alright, I once saw like a picture of like one of these giant pots to store, I don't know if they stored grain, but you know, it just fits with what I wanted to build, and I just couldn't find what the name of the pot was. Like I couldn't actually find the entire pot itself. I don't know, I think it's like half a year ago that I found that pot, and or at least a picture of those kinds of pots. But yeah, I can't find it anymore. But I still remember, oh yeah, they were kind of like huge Empora, so Empora being like those smaller pots that we do actually have in game. And they are actually named Empora, which I'm kind of happy with. That they actually have the name of the pot it actually is. That's not just pot number 3. It actually has a name. But yeah, so I wanted it to basically be a huge version of that, and then have like a little bit of like, well, flour coming out on the top, just to really solidify like this is used to store flour or grain or anything for that matter. Mostly grain though, because I do think that though we have like pretty, well, we have kind of huge sections of lands that are going to be like farmlands, but I do think that most of it will be grain, just because I just like the, well, I really like how just grain fields, or actually also like most fields actually look, but preferably grain. Also, you've already seen me build the upper section of what we're building right now, and I kind of got distracted, so I forgot to talk about it. But it's basically just like shifting the grain so that you get, you know, what you want to process into flour. Again, I forget the word for it because I'm a squirrel, which is generally my excuse for any time I don't remember a thing or forgot something or make weird noises. Or at least like when my voice starts to squeak. Yeah. So that's why it's not historically accurate. Like, this is literally just something I thought of. This is, well, it has no like historical reference. Well, it's probably not anywhere historical. It's just something I thought of like, all right, you need to shift the grain or like, you know, get the plant separated from what you actually want to process. All right, so what could we make? All right, let's make something that's probably looks a little bit ridiculous, and it kind of reminds me of like an hourglass for some reason. Like, it doesn't look anywhere like it, but just like the motion of like the seeds or the unprocessed flour going down, just for some reason makes me think of that. But anyway, so as I said, there's not much storage of like the flour actually down in the mill itself. So I actually made it also look like this pot was actually still empty, that this was going to be filled up and then was going to be placed basically on the roof, because the roof is in complete sunlight. So the roof is probably drier, while the ride also goes over the roof, so maybe not completely dry, but more dry than the windmill or the mill itself. But yeah, it just looks better on the roof for some reason. Also, yeah, the giant pots are giant, because why not? Also, because they are actually based on a real pot that I still can't find, which is annoying. Also, I quickly want to mention for anyone who saw the last video where I basically whined about my headache for 30 minutes. First of all, I'm fine. I'm actually like, I don't have a headache anymore, so I'm like, I would be really surprised if you stuck through that entire video, because it's literally just me whining for, well, not 30 minutes, but like 25 minutes about a headache. Yeah, it was a weird day. But then most of my videos are a little bit, I wouldn't say weird, but they're not like generic. That's probably like the best way to describe this entire channel. But anyway, back to what we're actually building, which is, well, it's the sort of like the base of the windmill. Like, this is where, I don't know, like maybe like the miller would live, but probably not, because the windmill is incredibly loud. So, well, you could live in a working windmill, but yeah, because after a while, like, you get used to certain sounds, like if they're there constantly. But I would also think you would just go deaf, because like nowadays we have, like, you know, we can in some way keep them a little bit more quiet, but back then it was really really loud. Also, back then they didn't really have windmills, so yeah, I'm still really surprised by that. Like, I really thought that like in ancient Greece they actually had like windmills like I've built here, but they didn't. Most of them were either done by hand or by like oxen or something. And I don't want to say like, oh, they were, well, drawn around by horses, because I do think that horses would probably be a little bit more of like an expensive thing, or like an expensive animal to be used in a windmill, because horses were valuable. And especially if you had like I wanted to say well-bred horse, but that sounds really weird, but also is kind of true. But if you have like a valuable horse, you don't want to basically waste it away in a windmill. But anyway, we're kind of getting off track, because well, that's just me. But I just wanted to have like the other windmill also has like a base where what it sits upon, and generally uses like the same building or like building pieces as the other windmill. But it's also a little bit different, just because I didn't like the shape of the round on round, or at least like half or like a quarter of this building, or like the inside, well, the bigger windmill is round, but then having another round tower on top of that, just like, that would just be too round for me. I don't know why. But yeah, quickly just basically just, this is a little bit rushed just because for some reason, like, this wall was just an eyesore for so long that I was just like, alright, like, I can't manage anymore building next to this eyesore without at least giving it a little bit of, like, well, a little bit of a touch up, because it was just, like, I don't know if you guys ever have this, but it's just really annoying to, like, build something that you are, like, really proud of and something else, like, to also have, like, a building that's, or like a side to the building which is a general eyesore. Like, I don't know why, but I just was like, I want to build this, I want to at least make it look as a little bit better, I would say. But yeah, so it's very minimal actually what I'm doing right here. It's just making it look not as bad. But anyway, for the backside of this building, which is actually where the Farmhands village is going to be, for a long time I had no idea what to do here, because it's pretty large over the area. The right doesn't really see it as well, because as you can see, like, the biggest drop in the right is right after it. So I thought, like, alright, what can I do here? First I thought actually to make the, well, basically the roof of this building into farmlands, but that would be kind of weird, because then the windmill would be underground, which doesn't really make sense in my head to, you know, build a windmill underground, or at least carve it out underground, which, you know, that would probably be a little bit too expensive for what the building is. So then I thought, like, alright, every building so far is huge, like, even the lift hill is a little bit imposing. So yeah, building some small little houses, or at least 2 of them, because I didn't want it to be too large, but also not too small. But I do want it to use different materials than I've used before, at least not marble. So even though this building has the color of marble, it's probably like plaster or something. Probably. Though it is a little bit of like, a little bit more of like a well-to-do house, because it does have like decorations on it. But also I wanted to have like a little bit of like a docking area, just because like the houses are so close to the water ride. To just have it built into rocks didn't really feel right. Like, for, well, as a theme park it's a ride, but to go in like storytelling and such, because I really like to do that, this would probably be like a small river, or like, well, actually not, well, it's a small river, but it's also not a very navigable river, so it's probably like a little fishing area or something. But I'm really proud of this area actually, because with the amount of like logs used, it actually ties it into other buildings in the area. So yeah, I'm really proud. Also, like, the small little beams that I'm adding is just because, well, they are holding the bigger round beams together, so that they don't just run off into the water. So yeah, I'm really proud of this area. Like, it's not like imposing, it's not very like detailed so far yet, because, you know, I think the next video is going to be like starting on like foliage and nature, because I just want to do that. I want to get all up in those plants. Which, well, that in a way sounds wrong, but I just, for the longest time, I always did like plants alongside what I was building, so that, you know, I don't know, so that maybe it becomes like what you wanted it very early on. But then I would also usually need to go back and fix the plants, because then buildings alongside it would just throw it out of balance. So in a way, I'm happy that we do plants last on this ride, but also it was painful to wait, because I just want to build like scenes, as it were. There's probably like a better way to say it than storytelling, but yeah, I just want to have like little scenes all over the park, and not adding plants kind of made it like, yeah, it just feels a little bit bare bones. So next video, maybe plants, or just finishing up some other things. I don't know. But by the time you're watching this, because again, like I'm going to just be honest, like this is pre-recorded, so by the time you're watching this, I am probably building in Planet Zoo, because, well, as I'm recording this, it's like 3 hours until the beta releases. Yeah, I should probably have recorded this a little bit earlier. But yeah, by the time you're seeing this, I will definitely have a video actually up for Planet Zoo, which is not going to be pre-recorded, I swear. Because, well, I didn't have any access to the beta, but, well, not... I have access to the beta, but not, like, beforehand. Like, I'm a squirrel, but I'm not magical. I wish I were, though, because red pandas. Yeah. I just want to build a red panda sanctuary. I don't... This is probably, like, not useful to the video at all, but, well, I'm a squirrel. Most of the videos aren't. But yeah, quickly also, with the other farmhand, well, basically house, it's a little bit less well-to-do as the other one. And I also wanted to, again, use those beams just to tie it in with other buildings in the area. And also it just makes it look a little bit more rough around the edges than having those just the normal stucco pieces that I usually use for roofs. And again, building a small little pier just because it looks really nice, and it kind of fits the area now that there's also like a smaller pier on the other side. I'm actually thinking of building like a small bridge in between that has like collapsed. And that's the reason why you go down the, well, the river rapids. Or the rapids in general. But yeah, we will see about that. Also, quickly to note, I want to come up with a name for this village. Yes, I know that that's like not going to ever be seen if I release Theonopolis, but for me it just provides some sense of like, I don't know. It just gives it a little bit more of like identity if it has a name. So yeah, I'm probably going to think of a name, but that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one. I wish you all an amazing day and weekend, and I also hope you will enjoy whatever I will build in Planet Zoo. Bye bye!